Today we're going to do a little bit of cooking with a vegetable from the garden, but it's a vegetable that's commonly used as a fruit. So this year we decided to force the rhubarb. So this is a patch where we've been growing rhubarb. It's been growing here for several years now. And underneath this bin, we put this on as soon as it started sprouting in spring. And underneath here, well, I'll just have to use two hands to get that off. So in the absence of light, the rhubarb has grown tall and spindly and pale, like this. This is called chlorosis. Not generally a very good thing for the plant, but if you just do it for a short time in spring like this rhubarb is a completely different thing to regular rhubarb. We're going to cut some of this today and make a cake. Actually, when I say we're going to cut some of it, what we actually do is pull the stalks out like that, and they come away cleanly at the bottom, and it doesn't leave any bits there that will rot. I'll just show you how that works. So there's another nice tall stalk. Here we go, that one there. So we just grab hold of it like this, pull it upwards, and it comes off like that. And fairly soon we'll take this bin off and we'll just allow the plant to recover and grow naturally, because obviously it does need the light to create, you know, to photosynthesize, to create its food and continue growing. I'll just have one more. So beautiful pale pink forced rhubarb. So the notion is we're going to make a rhubarb cake. We're going to make an upside down cake, so we're going to go in this dish here. So the rhubarb will go in the bottom, cake on top, we'll bake it and then turn it out. Now, I can't do the cooking today because I got a bit of a finger boo-boo. My cheese grater injury just needed a little bit of medical attention. The NHS is fantastic, it's going to be fine, but I can't get my hands wet today. So Jenny's going to do the cooking using a recipe from one of her cookbooks. So this is the recipe, orange and rhubarb pudding from the Best of Sainsbury's Desserts. We're using something a bit like this recipe, but we're going to adapt it. This has got orange in it. We did make a cake like this with orange, with blood oranges and rhubarb last week, and it was delicious. But with the forced rhubarb, it's a really gentle taste, and the blood orange flavour was lovely, but it overwhelmed the rhubarb. So we're going to use just a little bit of lemon today. We lose the leaves. Rhubarb leaves are not edible, toxic. So first thing is to thoroughly grease this oven-proof dish with butter. So rhubarb, I think, we'll cut into, let's say, that size pieces. And then we're going to arrange these in a single layer to cover the whole of the bottom of the dish. So we'll just get them nice and flat. I can use one hand. And I think we'll turn them, if there's any that have got a pink side and a white side, we'll turn them so the pink side is up, because aesthetics. And we could have done neat regimented rows of rhubarb, but I think actually it'll be a bit nicer if it's a bit more higgledy-piggledy. Yeah, as much as will go in there actually, so just keep on pushing it in to fill up the gaps. Okay, so that's 3 sticks of rhubarb have gone in there. Now, one thing that will work with this rhubarb without overwhelming it is a little bit of ginger. And what I'm going to do here is we've got this jar of stem ginger in syrup. That'll give it just a little bit of sweetness. It shouldn't need too much additional sweetening because this forced rhubarb is a lot sweeter than just conventionally grown in daylight rhubarb. We'll just have a tiny sprinkling of brown sugar, light brown sugar, on top of the rhubarb as well. So we also have a bit of lemon zest on top of the rhubarb, which will obviously be underneath the rhubarb when the cake is cooked and turned out. Okay, and then we've got just the juice of half that lemon. So still quite a few things other than rhubarb in there. So we've got rhubarb and ginger and lemon zest and lemon juice, but hopefully that will just enhance the flavour of the rhubarb rather than completely overwhelming it. So I'm going to kind of get out of Jenny's way now and let her get on and make the cake. I will stick my head in and we'll have a few little snippets, but here is the recipe we're following. I can make myself useful by preheating the oven. 180 degrees Celsius is 180 degrees on the dial. So that's the sugar and fat being creamed together. We're using a soft baking margarine for this. You could use soft butter. Okay, so 1 egg. Now the recipe specifies self-raising flour, but we're going to make this with a mixture of that and almond flour. So we're going to go for 50 grams of, oh, are you doing ounces?
Yeah, well, whatever.
So we'll go for 2 ounces of almond flour and 1 ounce of self-raising. About 1 ounce of self-raising flour, 2 ounces of almond flour, or 50 grams and 25 grams. Because we're not using all of the self-raising flour, we're going to just put a little pinch of baking powder in there. Obviously the self-raising flour has got baking powder in it, but we're only using 1/3 of the amount of self-raising as the recipe specifies. So about half a teaspoonful of baking powder goes in there. Now this recipe is written as an all-in-one, so the idea is you would just put all of the ingredients in the bowl and use an electric mixer to blend it together, but Jenny chose not to do that because it goes everywhere. So Jenny's using a more traditional method. So yeah, if you've got a modern all-in-one cake recipe where it says just chuck everything in a bowl and use an electric mixer, you can still adapt that by doing fat and sugar first, then eggs, then dry ingredients. And then it's possible to mix it by hand. I need a little bit more liquid in it, maybe?
Bit of milk.
Yeah. Obviously, where the volume of the ground almonds is greater than the volume of the equivalent amount of self-raising flour, I think we've ended up with quite a dry mix, so we have a little splash of milk just to loosen it. And now this mixture is going to be distributed on top of the rhubarb. So the cake mixture is then spread out evenly over the top of the rhubarb. And as soon as the oven's up to temperature, that will go in. In we go. We'll see you in, what is it, 20 minutes or something? 25 minutes?
It says 35 to 40, but I don't think it's going to need that long.
Yeah, I think we'll check it after 25.
Yeah. So you can adapt these recipes quite easily with different flours,
Yeah,
and different fruits
yeah.
in this book.
Yeah, I mean, actually upside down...
That's a pudding.
Yeah, this is a pudding, isn't it? So, yeah. Was there an upside down cake recipe in here as well?
Yeah. You've got apricot upside down pudding. You've got Eve's pudding. That's an upside down kind of thing. Pineapple.
Yeah. I mean, really, you could use almost any recipe for a sponge cake or a sponge type cake. Just put some fruit on the bottom of a dish, get a sponge cake recipe, put the batter on top of the fruit. You might need a bit of sugar with the fruit, mightn't you?
You might do, yeah.
And then bake it, and you'll end up with an upside down pudding.
Yeah. But you don't need so much sponge. You only need 4 ounce sponge, not a 6 ounce, unless you're making a big pudding.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, otherwise the ratio of cake to fruit would be high. Cool. Thank you, Jenny. Well, we've got 1 stick of rhubarb left, which we'll not waste. We'll think of something to do with that. We'll chuck it in some other thing. But this forced rhubarb, I think I'm right in saying this should be okay to eat raw. So awkwardly with my left hand, I'm going to cut a piece of that and taste it raw. No reason why I shouldn't. So that's about as sour as a green apple. So not nearly as sour as rhubarb that's grown in daylight. I mean, I think whilst it is nice and it's delicate and so on, it also doesn't have some of the flavour components of rhubarb. Rhubarb's not just about acidity, or astringency. It's also about a flavour. And whilst this is nice and quite mild, it doesn't taste so much of rhubarb. It tastes a bit like green apple. Okay, I reckon we're done. So that is actually about 27 minutes. Looking very good. But we'll just run around the edge with a knife, just right up against the glass, just to make sure it doesn't bake itself onto the glass. And then we're just going to let the steam and boiling heat subside a little bit before we try and turn that out. Right, so we're going to turn this out now. So that dish goes on the top there like that. Now this bit I can do with a bandage because I don't need to get my hands wet. We'll pick the whole lot up like that and then holding it tight, over we go. And then this dish can come off. So there we go, rhubarb upside down pudding. Steaming hot at the moment, way too hot to eat. We'll wait for that to cool down and then we'll give it a taste. Okay, right, it's time to serve this up. It's cooled down a little bit, it's still going to be slightly warm.
Quarter.
Yeah, why not? Here's one of those. Okay, and I'll have a big blob of that yogurt, I think, on mine. Let's just have a close look at this before we put yogurt on it. So it's a nice fluffy cake inside and pale pink rhubarb on top.
All right.
Yep, good. Okay, time for a taste. Going to try a bit without the yogurt. Good. Yeah. So nice little bit of sharpness there from the lemon and the rhubarb. Sweetness. The ginger it adds a tiny bit of aroma. It's not too gingery, is it? But you can taste it's there. Yeah. It's good. Now, one thing this forced rhubarb doesn't have is any stringiness at all. So sometimes when you get regular grown in the daylight rhubarb, it can be a little bit kind of fibrous, a bit stringy, but this stuff just melts in your mouth. I do think, though, it is slightly lacking in the traditional rhubarb flavour. What do you think?
I think it's all right.
It's delicate, isn't it? And the cake is fantastic. So, still a couple of servings left on that. Thank you, Jenny, for making that for us. That was our forced rhubarb upside down cake. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.